Right, folks, good evening. It is just gone 7:30 on Monday night. It's episode 28 on Let's Talk Possibility. And tonight we have a particularly awesome guest. It's not often we say we have a true rock star in the audience. Talana, who have you got for us?
We have got Cito of WONDERboom. So welcome, Cito.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So we're going to be talking to you about, or I want to know the creative process, how you go about making music, because if there's ever an example that I've met of someone who's able to create, I think it's you. Just to give you some background on Cito, in 1996 he started a band called WONDERboom with three other guys, Wade and Gareth and Martin.
No, actually it was Wade, Martin and Danny.
Danny
who was from... Martin, Wade, and myself were in a band called the Eight-Legged Groove Machine, so we started 2 years before that. And then we joined up with Danny, who was in the Electric Pedals, and we call ourselves the Electric Pedal Groove Machine for about
awesome name.
For about 3 or 4. And
so that moved.
We were briefly that name, and then we eventually call ourselves WONDERboom in '96.
So you're not actually from the north of Pretoria?
No. You could tell by the way I got lost on the way here. But Pretoria and I have got this love-hate relationship when it comes to directions and stuff and getting lost.
Yeah, because you actually grew up in America.
Yeah.
And then you came across it in high school.
Yeah.
And you've been in music since growing up. Your parents are musical.
Yeah, pretty much.
Background.
Yeah, it was my musical background really stemmed from the gospel side of music. You know, both of my parents are ministers, and my father plays piano, my mother plays guitar and accordion, and she sings. And all of my siblings, I've got 5 brothers and 2 sisters, we're all pretty musical. So we're always singing in church and harmonizing with each other. And my musical background was mainly gospel, classical, because my father loved classical, and like traditional folk, like Puerto Rican. My mother's Puerto Rican, so that's my upbringing.
So
and
it's
then
your upbringing.
My secular sort of influence only started really happening when I was a teenager, like the age of 13, 14. I started listening to rock bands and stuff like U2. That was my window band to secular music, because they were still kind of Christian.
And so do you find, I mean, you mentioned how you had that strong classical foundation in music, and do you find that having had that has opened up an avenue to being more creative in the kind of music that you guys are playing now?
Well, I think that, you know, when you look at WONDERboom as a unit, and now we've got Garth in the band, he was the drummer for Sugar Drive. He joined us almost 3 years ago. We're 4 distinct characters, and you know, each guy's got his own story, his own background, and obviously our common ground is rock. We like a lot of the alternative stuff. I was laughing with my wife yesterday because Wade has got his own sort of unique background. He loves George Michael, Barbra Streisand. Seal.
That's quite diverse in itself.
Yeah. And then Martin, you know, he studied music properly. He went to the UK, and his parents were from there. He was born there as well, and he went back to the UK. He left high school here and went back to the UK, and he studied music properly, and he did all his grades and all that. And he teaches music. He teaches guitar. And now he's doing music direction and stuff. But most of his musical love is like rock, punk, like all the really left of field stuff, a lot of hip hop nowadays. I ended up, after I got into the whole sort of rock band thing, I started getting into alternative music more and getting exposed to all sorts of other music from then, like jazz. So my classical sort of exposure was just sonically. I wasn't studying it. I wasn't learning the theory in that sense, but I was exposed to it, so I had more tolerance for it, you know. I look at my youngest son, and whenever I put on like classical music in the car, he'll say to me, "Oh, Dad, this music's giving me a headache," you know. And I'm like, oh, how can you say that? But you know, I can understand when you don't dig something, then you don't dig it, and it gives you a headache. And even my wife, I drive her crazy when I occasionally put her onto a classical station, and she's like, "Please, this is driving me crazy." I'm like, "Okay, you know." So I have a more tolerance more than you know anything else, you know.
But obviously, quite a variety of influences that have brought together WONDERboom and
Massive.
And since 1996,
Yeah.
you guys have actually. I mean, just look here at some of the things. You've got 8 albums out. You've just released your. Is that right? Your 8th
Yeah, we've
album.
got 8. We're working on our 9th one now at the moment.
And
Yeah.
you've headlined festivals. Just to put in context, you know, they've released chart-topping hits. You guys, in 2004, you won Best South African Rock Band in the Global Band Battle of the Bands, and then went on to actually win Best Rock Band in the World. In the
Second.
finals.
Second.
Second best.
Yeah. There's a.
Oh, yes, second best.
Oh, it's easy to miss. It's easy to miss the second.
Yeah, I mean that's a story in its own. I mean, look, with WONDERboom, obviously we kind of like got together and we started writing some amazing music, some way out music. I think our big sort of strength was our live performances, and that's why we were hitting all the festivals. And you know, it was the way that we had delivered it. And we always kind of, because of our different influences, a lot of our music is different to each other, very diverse repertoire. And I think what sort of was the one common thread is the way we delivered it live. Very energetic band. It was always like about a spontaneous combustion, which is where WONDERboom comes from. Well, one of the meanings anyway. When in 2004, we were already going for about 8 years. So we were a signed band. We had already had a couple of albums under our belt. And we were approached to enter this battle of the bands. And we were like, come on, we've already been rocking for years. How can you expect us to enter a battle of the bands? That's for up-and-coming bands. And the organizer said, listen, there's no, the criteria is that there's no, you can be signed, you can be unsigned. We just want South Africa's best bands, you know, basically, to represent us internationally. So I had to convince my band, because I was obviously the go-to guy. I'm always the go-to guy. I've got a big sucker sign over my head. Charities, whatever, you come to Cito first. And then I had to convince the guys, and the guys like, no, you know, how can we do this? We can only lose, you know. It's like, no, you can't have that kind of mentality. I eventually had to pose the question, do you not believe that you're in the best band in the world? And, you know, it was a big sort of moment of realization for us, like, what are we actually doing this for? You know, do we believe we're in the best band or not? And they all, you know, obviously all accepted it and admitted it, that yes, we are in the best band in the world. So let's go for it. Let's risk it. Let's risk everything that we've built up, you know, compete against up-and-coming bands, Flavor of the Month and all that stuff. And we were up against some, it was, I think, the first one that we had actually had in South Africa, part of the GBOB, they call it, Global Battle of the Bands. And we were up against some very, very cool, some established bands, you know, up-and-coming bands that were just blowing everybody away. And we miraculously won the South African leg.
Yes.
And that night, I'll never forget, because we were like little boys falling all over the place on stage when we went up to get our trophy. Some of us were in tears, and that moment I'll never forget. That's like the most significant stage of WONDERboom's career, I think, because it was like something we had to prove to ourselves more than anybody else. And when we went to London, we performed at the London Astoria. We competed against 17 other countries. And look, there were some crap bands there as well, but it was very interesting to see what the best, you know, these countries are offering. Bands from the US, from Canada, from Russia, they were from all over. The London band or the UK band was so funny because they were all black guys, but they were like this rock band, and they had this whole like intimidation thing going down. They looked like Predator, like these dreads and these matching like sci-fi kind of, it was a weird getup, and they were called X Factor or X something, and they kept doing this, like crossing their arms, like, It was very WWE.
It sounds like I mean, that is just must be. I'm going to ask you now more about the creative process, but that must have brought so much into, you know, to your.
The experience.
What you do, the experience.
No, big time. And then it was great
band.
playing to all these South Africans that came to support in the UK. And then, yeah, we came second. And the band that won was a band from Spain called Second.
Yeah, that is funny.
How to confuse the whole listening public.
Yeah, I know. Well, it was very interesting, you know, just that whole experience.
Yes. So and just to add, sorry, I just want to add a few more things, just because you've also now, you're about to launch your solo career. So, I mean, the band's still going. I think you guys are launching some new stuff there.
Yeah, well, no, we're recording. Yeah, we're recording some new material.
And then you've also got an acoustic side project called Absinthe.
Yeah, that's just the beginning. I mean, this year I've started off another 2 projects. But yeah, this year I'm focusing on my solo stuff. And you're actually getting me at a very cool stage right now, or cool phase, because I'm very creative. I'm in the studio.
Wow. Okay.
And
because I mean, you've even been in musical productions. You were Jesus and Jesus Christ Superstars.
Yeah, I think
the range of what you do.
Yeah, I keep myself busy with all sorts of stuff. Lots of
so
pies.
Varied,
and do you find having your fingers in so many pies kind of keeps you fresh and creative?
Yeah, I think that when I first started doing musical theatre, especially, I started realizing what I have to offer as an individual, because I was always hiding behind the band, and I was just one of the band members, and I didn't take my vocals too seriously. When I did musical theatre and I did my first audition with the piano, I realized that there was something more to my voice, and I think those who know me know that my strength is in my voice nowadays, and for me to realize that and to acknowledge that and to come out of my shell and to, you know, actually do something with it, that's when I started sort of really accelerating in leaps and bounds with what I could do, and started developing all these other pies. Musical theatre was a great experience for me, and it still is every now and then. I don't do too much of it, but when I do it, it's really, really cool, because it's totally different from the rock and roll world. With regards to, you know, basically performing 6 to 8 shows a week and getting into a role playing, so you become this role, and you know, and trying to find some sort of try to find some sort of spontaneity in that. You'd think that, you know, you might get bored or whatever, but there's actually each performance is different. There's always a new dynamic in that kind of thing. And I learned a lot from that. I learned how to treat my voice, how to do scales, how to push myself with my voice, what I can do with my voice, you know, the drama, the meaning behind the words that you're singing, stuff like that, the emotion.
So it really has stretched your ability, your repertoire.
My singing ability, yeah. And since 2006, I started developing all these other pies, and this year in particular, and last year, I started, you know, trying out different kinds of genres, producing other artists, producing other bands, doing more of the musical side of things, more of the creative stuff, the music composition, writing different genres and styles, programming, recording basically lots of different styles and stuff.
So, I mean, how does that creative process work for you? You know, obviously you get to that point where it's time to do a new album or a new song, and you sit down in front of a piano, I'm guessing, with a blank piece of paper, or not.
Is that your process? I mean, do you say, okay, now we want to release a new, or what comes first?
It totally depends. It totally depends. A lot of the self-fulfilling original stuff just comes from the air. Like, you know, I believe it doesn't come from me. I believe it comes from someplace supernatural, that I'm just a vehicle, just like every other musician and artist. And when you're receptive, and when you're in that mode, because you know, you don't just sit around waiting for it. You gotta, like you say, sometimes I get projects where they're concepts that I have to develop, and you start from scratch as if you would be doing any other kind of project, and you do the whole mind mapping and brainstorming, and You start like for lyrical content, and then musically you kind of you kind of feel where you need to go. And I usually start off with beats or a tempo, and then then I build. My first instrument that I learned to play was bass, and it's my favorite instrument: bass guitar, double bass, that kind of thing. So I always think in bass lines and like loops. So that's usually where my seeds begin, especially my original stuff. And when I'm doing something conceptually, like if I've been commissioned to write a track for a certain charity or a certain event, a corporate event, or whatever I need to do, then I work with the theme that I've been given, like a brief. I also do jingles and stuff like that. So there you can't just sit around and wait for stuff.
Yeah.
You gotta just work at it, and it's about putting in the hours, putting in the time, and the more time that you put into it, the more you open yourself up for creativity and inspiration. And usually I'm working on something that I've been commissioned to do, or something I've been working on for a while, and then something else hits me, something fresh, and then I have to capture that. And a lot of the times I'm on the toilet or in the shower, or I'm driving, or I'm cooking, or busy having a romantic dinner with my wife, and then here comes this little, thing, this little seed in my head, and what do? I have to be rude and just say, "Excuse me, baby." I pick up my phone and I just record whatever the idea is, whether it's lyrical or it's a bass line or it's a beat or whatever, and I've got it on my phone, and then later on I listen to it, and then I start working in my studio, in my den.
Because that was one of the ideas that, I think it happens with me as well, like percolate. You think of something and you get stuck with it. You don't know where to go. So when you leave it, you go do something else, totally different. The answer comes to you. So
And there's no one formula either. Like I do a lot of work on my own, and I'm really enjoying that side of it, because sometimes you go through phases where you have writer's block, and you just sit there like killing yourself because you're just stuck. And you're stuck, and you're stuck. And the reason why that is that we keep going down the same tunnel. And inspiration and the universe, it's a very, very great sense of humor. And it shows you that there's no formula. There's no one way of doing it. And I've been finding recently that collaboration is the best way for inspiration and creativity. So I've just started a dance project with Paul Flynn from Sugar Drive. He and I have got this side project called Absinthe that we've been going since 2004. Yeah. And Absinthe is basically a renditions, an unplugged renditions project. So we do our favorite songs. So they're covers, basically, mostly alternative and all that. And we do like a collaboration where we harmonize with each other, and it's all acoustic guitars, and it's really, really cool, You could take that into any kind of situation, like house parties to the supper clubs. We've been really rocking at supper clubs lately. And so we've never done anything original together. And I got a track from a DJ about a month or two, asking if I could sing on this track, and I happened to play it to Paul the one night. I kind of had an idea with what I wanted to do with the chorus, and he's like, let me get in on this too. So I was like, okay, and we spent 2 nights, like he came around for 2 nights at my studio, up to like 1 a.m, having the time of our lives, single malt whiskey, microphone in the other hand, and doing live creative writing and singing and stuff, that for me has been the most liberating and the most experience for me, because you get stuck in your own world, and when you start collaborating with somebody and bouncing ideas off and giving them ideas and them giving you ideas, and the most amazing magic happens.
Yeah, and that sort of pushes you beyond your comfort zone and beyond what you're used to, and almost forces you to start just gaining a different perspective on what it is that you're doing. I mean, 16 years you've been at it.
With WONDERboom,
specifically,
And why do you still keep doing it? What motivates you?
Well, we're probably like one of the few bands, if not the only band, that hasn't really broken up since we started, since those days. And if I think about Sugar Drive and Nude Girls and all, they've sort of been on and off. Just Ginger have also been kind of on and off. And I think I don't know what it is. I think maybe it's we're delusional, or we really believe that we have something that really hasn't been given the rest of the world hasn't really listened to. So we're not going to give up, and we just enjoy each other's company. So we enjoy creating, and I think the big thing for us is we enjoy performing live together. And because the other guys have got their own projects and all that, it keeps them sort of fresh. So when we meet up with each other, it's not like, oh, it's you again. It's like, hey, I miss you. Let's get it going. So I think first and foremost, we're buddies, and that has been our sort of saving grace. As far as the longevity of the band, it's that relationship. It's the longest relationship I've been in, really.
And that you have outside projects, that you're all doing your own stuff, that you then bring in fresh ideas and the collaboration can then happen.
Yes, like Martin has been he's been jamming with Flash Republic for the past 3 years as a guitarist, and I think the last album he was like a 25% contributor to the music as well, writer. And now he's doing music direction for the SAMAs, the South African Music Awards,
yes.
and he's going to be doing Idols as well. So he's like going in his own direction as well, where he's not just stuck to his guitar, as he also has been doing for many, many years. He teaches and all that, but now he's been having his own realization of like, wait a minute, I can actually do more than he discovered the world of technology. 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, he got himself a MacBook, and he's been like this boy in a toy shop. It's just like he's just been sitting there recording and getting all sorts of ideas. He's also started up a couple of other projects, and that's the thing, breaking away from the old school mentality of like putting your eggs in one basket, and this is where we must focus all of our energy, and that's you can't think with blinkers, to where we're at now, and just getting all sorts of, because we have to fulfill ourselves. We are career musicians, and if that's what we do, then we have to sort of check out and be open to all kinds of possibilities.
Yeah, but I think also the fact that all of you are involved in so many different things allows for a lot of cross-pollination.
Yes.
So you're never getting stagnant in one particular way of thinking. The fact that you and your band members are stretching yourselves in other projects allows you to bring more insights into a band project.
Absolutely. It's definitely helped with our writing as well, like especially with our new stuff now. We've gone in another direction, and now we're not afraid to. We've been always boxed into this old retro rock organic kind of thing, and we've been doing it for so many years that we're starting to say, no, wait a minute, we don't have to be stuck in this. We can do whatever we want, actually. And this is this is what the band is about. It's about capturing where we're at in our lives and being honest to ourselves. And that's where I'm having lots of fun with my solo stuff as well, where there's none of this pressure of I have to sound like this, and I have to sell albums, and I have to be accessible and all that stuff. I'm just writing whatever I feel like writing, and whatever's actually coming my way. And if it happens, then it happens. If it doesn't, at least I'm still fulfilled,
So that's one of the questions I had, because I think feedback for me is such a powerful. I'm always like, I'm a feedback junkie. Give me feedback, because that's how I know how to grow.
Yeah.
But there's also so many critics out there. People are very good at telling you what they don't like.
Yeah.
Have you guys? I mean, do you find that
we don't take criticism very well. No, you know what?
But is it useful? Even though
look, that's one of the things.
Hear, but is it useful at all?
Look, it's been one of the frustrating things, especially a band going for as long as we have. To we've always been moving with the changes. We've never really been followers of fashion, so we've always been sort of on our own kind of mission. And sometimes it happens to sync up with what's happening with the world, and other times it's not. Sometimes it's like, so on its own mission that it's never really contemporary or whatever. But I think that feedback is, and I think we're more and more open to it these days than ever. There's great platforms like SoundCloud where you can post tracks, and technology is making it easier for us to get that kind of feedback, but at the same time, you're kind of scared of letting out too much before you've decided which way to go, if you know what I'm saying. So it's kind of like a balance between both things, where maybe you let out a couple of demos and people can sort of crit you on it or whatever, or you want to actually just hold it back and make this major release that you're going to break through with. The technology is there for us to work with. A lot of my feedback comes from my wife, who's my muse, and friends. I play the tracks around to friends and stuff. We have people in the industry that we're good friends with, and we just say, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And the honesty is the best sort of policy, and they're honest enough to say, look, it's not really wowing us, or wow, this track in particular is really doing something for us.
Find out why.
And I think also, because you've been in the industry for so long, and as you say, you are true professional musicians, you have that confidence to put something new out there. And I think one of the sort of cornerstones of being creative is to have the confidence to try something different, the confidence to try something new.
Okay, experiments.
And to an extent, you've probably got to have that attitude that says, well, we're going to put it out there, we'll listen to the feedback, but if I don't like the feedback, that's okay too.
Yeah. And you know what, that's one thing I'm realizing, is that we can't just rely on feedback, because what we're doing when we're recording is we're capturing a moment, and sometimes it's not meant to be a commercially successful thing. Sometimes it's just capturing that moment. When you're creating, you can't have any sort of expectation or any end result to it. When you're putting something forward, you're putting it forward, and sometimes it's not going to be your best stuff, but it doesn't always have to be your best stuff, If you stop letting out that stuff, then you're never going to get your best stuff, because you're so afraid of taking those steps. And that's where I'm at. I'm at a stage of like, I'm willing to take some chances because it's fun and it's fulfilling.
And I think that's kind of a second cornerstone that I've picked up in the last half hour that we've been talking, is that the confidence and certainly the fun part. When you wake up every morning and you go and do what you're doing, not to sell records, not to make money, not to please others.
It would be nice, but yeah.
Yeah, those are nice to have, but the thing that drives your creativity is the fact that you're just out there having fun.
Having fun, yeah. And people read that, I've done the thing of trying to gauge, especially when you're tied up with record companies and all that. And I'm not going to name any record companies, but, that we would be almost pressurized into, write this, write a hit. And it's such a negative space to be in, because you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And it actually stunts your growth, it stunts your creativity. And you don't evolve, and you need to evolve. By the time you listen to stuff that's on radio, that's taken, like whatever's trend-setting and new that you've heard on radio has actually been worked on for like 6 to 18 months already. So that's already old. So whatever you're creating, and if you want to break new ground, you can't listen to the radio for trying to, I don't know, try to work out what kind of new sound there is. There's always going to be a new sound, and you just basically got to have fun. Sometimes it's retro sounding.
So if we were trying to then sum up, is there a creative process? Because I'm hearing more it sounds like it's a way of thinking or being that leads to creativity being unleashed, less of a do this first, then do that. It's just not as linear as it's more have fun, let out what's in you, and just see where it goes, have the confidence to let it out, as you're saying. See whenever the inspiration hits, make a note, but also hard work at it.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I had to also accept is that my creativity is just as important as everything else in my life. And because I was caught up with, making a buck, or what we call priorities, I would always sort of leave my creativity when, like, sort of after hours, or after I've done everything, all my work, then I'll sort of, and a lot of the time you're so exhausted, you can't even think. All you want to do is curl up and read a book or pass out or whatever, and my life coach told me that I should start really putting that first place, because that is where my source of everything happens. That's why I have the job that I do. That's why I get paid for what I do. That's why I am who I am. It's because of the creativity. So I've started to put that in my diary as the first thing that I do in the morning, before I start looking at emails, before I start, so maybe just taking it a little bit more seriously if you have the capacity and you can, even if it means waking up earlier in the day. I find that I'm my most creative first thing in the morning. And I've tried it out. I've tried to put it in sort of different blocks throughout the week. So sometimes first thing in the morning, sometimes in the middle of the day. And then again, like I said, inspiration hits you whenever it hits you. But then you can just record it temporarily, like onto your phone or something, and then you attack it first thing the next morning, and then you'll be surprised. It's when you start taking it as seriously as everything else in your life, then it starts to really bloom and flourish. So there's no real formula. It's not as linear as, okay, now I'm going to sit down and it's going to hit me. But I think the more time you put towards it, the more you open yourself to it, the more you open yourself up to creativity, and the more you make that a priority in your life, then the more it will become a priority.
Sure.
Fantastic. I mean,
and that's it.
It really it's about just creating that structure.
Yeah.
In your life that allows you to be creative, or that allows you to do whatever is important in your area of work.
And it's a balance, if you only do that, then you'll go mad, and you might come up with some great stuff, but then you'll have no life, and nobody to appreciate it around you,
So it's all the balance, but prioritizing.
I think it's very healthy also just to have the balance, do fun stuff, do the accounting stuff that you need to do, cook, spend time with your family, love your animals. Do all the things that you need to do, and treat that as one of the priorities in your life,
Great. If anyone wants to get hold of you, Cito, what's the best way?
I think my most easy way to get to me is on my Facebook page or through Twitter. Twitter, I'm Cito1974. That's the year I was born. Facebook, I'm
Great.
Martin Cito Otto. My real name is Martin Otto, and Cito is a nickname in Spanish. That's probably the best way.
Great.
To
And
Facebook
obviously,
and Twitter.
if anyone can go and see your profile on our blog, there's a lot
check
more
out my profile
information
on that
and
blog.
details.
Very nicely
there.
put together. And Cito@WONDERboom.co is a nice direct email.
Yeah. But there is, of course, another opportunity, Talana, for everybody to come and watch WONDERboom live. Tell us about that.
Do we have enough time?
In
In a minute, quickly.
In a minute. Well, I do a project on the side called One Matchstick. I'm trying to turn a matchstick into an office. And my latest item, I'm not going to go through the details, is actually to have WONDERboom play in your house. Like your own.
You better have a big
private
house.
rock concert.
Because, WONDERboom, you guys come with a crowd of thousands. So.
Well, there's only 4 of us in the band, but it's up to you how many thousands you want to have into your house. Yeah, we're calling it Rock the House. So if you have like a house party, or you're thinking of having a bar mitzvah at your house, or a
50th birthday party, or a wedding.
Just make sure you invite the neighbors.
The neighbors.
Yeah.
And so you can get more details on that. The website for that is onematchstick.co.za.
Yeah, we come with a whole production, a DJ afterwards, and a live performance in your house.
And the idea is you just have to make me an offer for what you think that's worth.
You think that could be worth.
And I might trade with you for the Rock the House opportunity. But yeah, on that note, I hope that's another creative outlet. And but thanks for coming and sharing about creativity.
Cool.
How to
Thanks
be
for
more
having me.
creative.
It's been awesome insights into,
Yeah.
as you would say earlier, out of the left field on how to be creative, and how, let's say, normal people, for those of us who aren't musos, can apply the same kind of principles in our lives, in our business, etc.
Cool.
And yeah, let's keep talking about creativity on our Facebook page, or you can tweet us on LT Possibility. But until then, go
Cool.
find possibilities.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.